Hello, my name is Prayer Carter, and today I will be discussing my community problem framework video presentation. For my presentation today, I will be focusing on the disparities among Black women. First, we will start by identifying the community, which is Black women. So the community of Black women is a social group defined by the intersection of race and gender. As a community, Black women share common experiences shaped by systemic racism, sexism, cultural heritage, and historical oppression. This community is multi-dimensional, consisting of individuals from various socioeconomic backgrounds, educational levels, religions, and sexual orientation. Black women are united by shared cultural identity and resilience. The dimensions of this community include emotional connectedness, social solidarity, cultural expression, and advocacy for equity and justice. All right, and then next we will discuss the data. So this is the community needs, issues, and problems. All right, so first just looking at some of the issues and the problems within this community. First is going to be the Black maternal health crisis. So the CDC reports that Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women, even when accounting for education and income levels. Next, we have healthcare access and discrimination. So a 2023 report by the Kaiser Family Foundation noted that 21% of Black women reported unfair treatment by their medical providers due to their race and ethnicity. Next, we have economic inequality and employment. So according to the National Women's Law Center, Black women are paid 64 cents for every dollar paid to white non-Hispanic men, and that was in 2023. This community also faces violence and safety. So the Institute for Women's Policy Research found that over 40% of Black women experience domestic violence in their lifetime. So considering those issues and problems, some of the needs for this community consist of culturally competent and accessible mental health care, also maternal health equity and reproductive justice, also fair wages and economic mobility opportunities, protection from violence and access to trauma-informed services, and then reduction of racial biases that's held in the healthcare system. All right, next we will look at some of the community assets. So looking at their values, strengths, and resiliencies. So one is going to be their education. And so Black women are the most educated demographic in the United States by degree attainment among women of color. Also, they are recognized for their faith and spirituality. So churches and faith-based organizations remain central to emotional support, activism, and community building. They're also noticed for their strong leadership. So Black women have historically led social justice movements. They're also recognized for their entrepreneurship. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the United States. Okay, and then when we look at the power structure, we'll go over some of the formal and informal leaders within the Black community. So first, just looking at formal leaders, we have Congresswoman Presley, who was an advocate for criminal justice reform and maternal health. Also, Senator Butler, who was California's first Black woman U.S. Senator, a champion for workers' rights and reproductive justice. Also, Representative Barbara Lee, known for her work on health equity, anti-poverty initiatives, and peace advocacy. And then also Vice President Kamala Harris, who was the first Black and South Asian woman to serve a U.S. Vice President. And she also brings attention to the issues affecting women of color. And then when we look at some of the informal leaders, we have some of the community health advocates, so women who work in maternal health programs such as Black Infant Health, the doulas, or any peer support workers. We also have the faith leaders and spiritual mentors, so Black women pastors, ministers, or prayer circle leaders who guide through faith and emotional support. We also have scholars like Kimberly Crenshaw, who was a legal scholar who coined the term intersectionality, shaping how we understand the experiences of Black women. We also have Mrs. Burke, who was the founder of the Me Too movement, centering Black survivors of sexual violence. All right, and then next we will look at social policies that impact Black women's well-being. So one is the Black Maternal Health Act of 2023. So with this act, it aims to improve maternal health outcomes by addressing social determinants, funding community-based organizations, and diversifying the prenatal workforce. We also have the Affordable Care Act. With the Affordable Care Act, it increases access to healthcare for Black women, but gaps unfortunately still remain in culturally competent care and reproductive health services. We also have the Violence Against Women's Act, which supports services for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. And then also social safety net programs such as SNAP, WIC, and Medi-Cal or Medicaid. And then these programs provide essential support, but of course there are restrictions that reduce access among Black women. All right, and then in our next section, we will focus on structure and capacity. So just by looking at some of the formal resources in the community, I'll start with Black Infant Health, which is through the California Department of Public Health. All right, so within the Black Infant Health Program, they provide culturally affirming evidence-based support to improve infant survival rates and maternal health outcomes among Black women. This program provides groups, they provide one-on-one case management, they help with stress reduction, life plannings, and other linkages to healthcare and social services. They also do a lot with empowering women by focusing on self-advocacy, social support, and resilience. Another formal resource in the community is going to be the Black Women for Wellness. Within this program, they offer health education, reproductive justice advocacy, and wellness services for Black women in Los Angeles and beyond. And then also the local community health clinics, such as Clinica Sierra Vista, provide essential medical and behavioral health services, often with maternal health and women-centered programming. Again, some of the local government services such as CalWORKS, WIC, Medi-Cal, and home visitation programs help address social determinants of health. For example, food insecurity, prenatal care, and housing. And then the community also has a couple nonprofit and advocacy organizations, so such as Sister Song, National Birth Equity Collaborative, the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, which all promote reproductive and maternal health equity for Black women nationwide. And then looking at some of the informal resources in the community, again, strong emphasis on faith-based communities. So churches and ministries often provide emergency support, counseling, parenting groups, and referrals to BIH or local maternal health programs. They also have mutual aid networks, so informal groups organized through social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, which they help deliver baby food, supplies, or doula services and expecting or postpartum Black women. Also, cultural healing spaces, so motherhood support circles, wellness retreats, and community baby showers hosted by local Black doulas and nonprofits. All right, so then looking at patterns of influence, control, and service delivery. So just focusing on influence and influence and control. So community-driven leadership. So of course, Black women lead many of the maternal and infant health initiatives. BIH, for example, employs women from the community to connect with clients authentically. While some of the services are state-funded like BIH, much of the advocacy and trust lies in grassroots or culturally aligned providers. And some of these programs face barriers in mainstream institutions, so health systems often lack cultural competence or perpetuate medical racism, causing distrust and underutilization by Black women. When it comes to the service delivery, Black women often navigate both formal systems, BIH and public clinics, and informal networks like churches, family, and community doulas for support during pregnancy and motherhood. A lot of the programs are culturally tailored. Models work best. So programs like BIH succeed because they honor cultural identity, build trust, and empower Black women to take charge of their health and their baby's well-being. So as I discussed some of the problems in the community earlier, I'll focus just on one social problem, which is going to be the Black maternal and infant health disparities. So Black maternal and infant health disparities represent a serious public health crisis in the United States. Black women are far more likely to experience complications during pregnancy and childbirth and face higher rates of infant mortality and maternal death compared to white women, regardless of their income and educational levels. All right, and so when we just look at the condition of the problem, so again, according to the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, Black women are 3 to 4 more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. The infant mortality rate for Black babies is more than twice that of white babies, often due to low birth weight, premature birth, and inadequate prenatal care. These disparities persist regardless of socioeconomic status or educational attainment, indicating that systemic racism and institutional biases are primary drivers. All right, and then we look at the root cause of the problem. We have implicit bias and racism in the healthcare contribute to Black women being dismissed or inadequately treated during childbirth and postpartum care. Also from chronic stress from racism. So this is known as weathering, which impacts the physical health of Black women over time, increasing the risk during pregnancy. They also struggle with access barriers to quality, culturally competent prenatal care and postpartum follow-up. There is a known distrust in the medical system due to a long history of mistreatment and medical racism. Also, there is a lack of representation of Black women in the healthcare. All right, so then we will look at some of the opportunities to solve the problem or to mitigate the problem. So one is expanding culturally competent community-based programs. So investing in and expanding programs like the Black Infant Health Program and community-based doula/midwifery services can bridge the gaps in access and improve outcomes. Also, for 2, policy reform and implementation. The opportunity here is support for federal and state level maternal health legislation, such as the Black Maternal Health Act, which offers a chance to build sustainable change. And then 3, we have workforce diversification in healthcare. So within this is the opportunity is recruiting, training, and retaining more Black healthcare professionals, particularly in the healthcare and mental health fields. And then 4, we have community education and advocacy. So the opportunity here is empowering Black women in their communities with education, advocacy training, leadership development, which increases capacity for self-advocacy and policy influence. All right. And so then when we move on to input from the community, so for me, I do work in the Black Infant Health Program as I work directly with expecting and postpartum Black women. Through this work, I regularly hear firsthand stories from women who are navigating the challenges of pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting while confronting systemic barriers to care and wellness. Their lived experiences offer deep insight into the ongoing social problem and Black maternal infant health disparities. So some of the community voices and shared experiences. So one, of course, as I said earlier, is a lack of trust in the healthcare system. So many of the women I serve express distrust in the medical professionals, often due to past experiences where they felt ignored, dismissed, or judged. Some share stories of expressing pain or concern during their labor and only to be met with indifference or disbelief by medical staff. For two, the mental health and emotional support. So postpartum depression and anxiety are common concerns, but many Black women hesitate to seek help due to the stigma, lack of representation in mental health care, and fear of being misunderstood. And then three, we have empowerment through education. A powerful part of our work at BIH is equipping women with information about their rights, their health, and their options. Many women are unaware of what services are available or how to advocate for themselves during medical visits. And then four, desire for representation and cultural understanding. Women in our groups consistently express the importance of being cared for by people who look like them, understand their struggles, and can relate to their culture and history. All right. And then lastly, we will do the social problem and working hypothesis. So as I frame the social problem, so Black maternal and infant health disparities represent a persistent and systemic public health crisis. Black women in the United States are significantly more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes and experience adverse birth outcomes, including low birth weight, preterm birth, and infant mortality. These disparities are not due to individual behavior or socioeconomic status alone, but are the result of structural racism, implicit bias in the healthcare, chronic stress, and inequitable access to culturally competent care. Despite medical advancements, these health inequalities persist across income and educational levels, pointing to deeply embedded institutional and social determinants that negatively impact women's health throughout their reproductive journeys. So my working hypothesis is as Black women are provided with sustained, culturally responsive support during pregnancy and postpartum through community-based programs like Black Infant Health, BIH, increases access to mental health services and policies that expand equitable care delivery, then maternal and infant health outcomes for Black women and their children will significantly improve, leading to decreased mortality rates, better mental health, and stronger family well-being for the Black community. All right, and these are my references. All right, and thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.